You say sorry, you mean it, and somehow it still doesn't land. The other person nods. They say it's fine, but something in their eyes tells you it isn't. You've done this before, you'll do it again, and every time you'll wonder why the words that felt so heavy in your mouth landed so lightly on them. Here's the strange part. The real answer has almost nothing to do with the words at all. For most of human history, there was no word for sorry. Not the way you use it now. Anthropologists who study small-scale societies, including Sarah Hrdy, have documented how early human groups repaired relationships not through verbal apology but through physical proximity. You stayed close, you shared food, you showed your face at the fire even when you were ashamed to. That was the apology, not a sentence, a presence. Think about what an apology actually is underneath the words. It's a signal that says, I still choose you, even now, even after this. Your brain didn't evolve to parse grammar for that signal. It evolved to watch behavior. This is why a text that says, I'm so sorry, can feel weightless, while a friend simply showing up at your door saying nothing can undo weeks of distance in a single afternoon. Your brain is running an ancient calculation. Not what did they say, but what did it cost them to make this right? Psychologist John Gottman spent decades observing couples in his lab, tracking which relationships survived conflict and which quietly dissolved. His research kept surfacing the same pattern. Repair wasn't about clever wording. It was about small, repeated bids of attention after the rupture. A hand on the shoulder, a returned phone call, choosing to stay in the room. Couples who said the right words but didn't change their behavior still drifted apart. Couples who fumbled the words but kept showing up again and again often stayed together. Why would evolution build a brain that cares so little about vocabulary and so much about action? Because words are cheap. For your ancestors, that mattered enormously. Anyone could say, I won't do it again. Words cost nothing to produce and nothing to fake. A tribe that rewarded apologies just for being spoken would have been easy to exploit again and again by anyone willing to lie. But showing up costs something real. It costs time. It costs the risk of being rejected. It costs walking towards someone who might slam the door in your face. That cost is exactly why it works. Your brain, tuned by hundreds of thousands of years of small group survival, learned to trust expensive signals over cheap ones. This is sometimes called costly signaling, and it explains far more than apologies. It explains why a gift that took effort means more than one that took money. It explains why a friend who drives 2 hours to sit with you in a hospital waiting room means more than the 20 people who texted thinking of you. Anthropologist Dunbar, known for his work on social bonding, has argued that the behaviors which built trust in early human groups were rarely the loudest ones. They were the costly, repeated, physically present ones. Grooming. Sharing meat after a hunt, standing beside someone during a conflict with a rival group. None of that required a vocabulary for forgiveness. It required a body that stayed. Now think about your own life. How many times have you forgiven someone, not the moment they apologized, but the moment you noticed they'd quietly changed? They stopped doing the thing. They started calling when they said they would. They showed up to the birthday, the funeral, the ordinary Tuesday when nothing was expected of them at all. That's when something in your chest finally loosens. Not at the word, at the pattern. And here's the part that stings a little. This means an apology without changed behavior isn't actually an apology. It's a request for the relationship to reset without the cost being paid. Your brain, older and wiser than your ego, usually knows the difference. That's why you can hear "I'm sorry" and still feel, somewhere underneath, that nothing has actually moved. This also explains why the people who are worst at apologizing in words are sometimes the easiest to forgive, and the people who are best at apologizing in words are sometimes impossible to trust. Eloquence was never the signal your ancestors were built to reward. Consistency was. So what does this mean for the apologies you're carrying right now? The ones you owe, the ones you're still waiting on? It means the sentence was never the repair, it was only the announcement that repair was about to begin. Your ancestors didn't have therapy. They didn't have language sophisticated enough for phrases like, "I hear you," or "I take full responsibility." What they had was simpler and, in some ways, harder. They had to keep showing up to the people they'd wronged day after day until the group could see with its own eyes that the danger had passed. That's still the test running quietly underneath every relationship you have. Not what someone says when they've hurt you, but what they do in the weeks after, when saying sorry again would cost them nothing and showing up would cost them everything. Maybe that's why the apologies that actually heal you were never really about words at all. Maybe you've been forgiving people with your actions long before your brain caught up and let the resentment go. And maybe the person you're still waiting to forgive isn't waiting on a better sentence from you. They're waiting on you to show up again.